high school assignment policy?
I think I had that on there. It was my understanding after we had made the last vote about reassignment issue and having the superintendent take care of it, it was my impression that that was a temporary measure, that we were going to revisit this idea. And I forwarded you all a proposal that I had made to revamp JCB. And the biggest issue, and I think probably the most controversial change that I put in that proposal, was an assistance program, financial assistance for someone who's trying to go to a high school other than Manchester that cannot afford it. Because that was what I heard here at the board as one of the biggest concerns about what we were doing. So I wanted to address that for discussion. I understand that it is a very complicated issue and there is no simple answer, but I thought that we should at least discuss it because it was a great concern. I originally had put in my proposal that perhaps we could use the lunch assistance program as criteria for being able to provide assistance to people that wanted to go to a school other than Manchester. But in talking to a couple of people, I kind of changed my idea that that wasn't really a very good idea because it just doesn't seem that there's really a lot of proof of financial situation in that program, that it's, I don't want to say that, it's just not that hard to qualify for. So I wanted to start that discussion now so that we could come to whatever decision we want to before our current 7th graders become 8th graders and are starting to make decisions about high school. So, and I guess we need to discuss how we're going to do that, if there's a will to not to do just the assistance thing, but to change the policy. We just kind of left it after our last vote.
So just for my clarification, are we looking for the board to put some sort of charge together for the policy committee?
I'm not.
That's what I'm asking.
No, my idea, well, my idea was to get it on the agenda so we start talking about it, because I think we should be addressing it, and I don't think it's a simple issue. As I looked at it, from the votes that were taken and the opinions expressed, it seemed to be that financial issue was really, and the crux of it. And I think that's a complicated issue and something that's going to take some time. And maybe we don't support it, maybe we do, but I think if we're going to go down that road and even look at it, we really need to get started or decide if we want to do that kind of thing. I don't know.
I mean, you're looking, we're still looking for some retreat items too, and I say that just because there's more time allotted at those meetings.
Yeah,
this sounds like a big one.
Right. And I mean, I'm not a fan of retreats, not to get off on that subject, but I'm all in favor of discussing it and parsing it up and discussing it in meetings when we have the full public here and maybe people can come that are interested in the subject, hopefully. I don't like the idea, I don't like the word retreat. As you know, I had some criticisms about the documentation of the retreat last year. I think it all needs to be on the record and we need to get people involved, especially with this issue. I would hope we could get some public input, as far as how people felt about it. So I would rather deal with it as a board, start now, and maybe take it piece at a time. I like the idea of how we did the assessment committee, bringing it up 1 week, think about it, kind of come back and move ahead. But I'm not really in favor of sending it to a policy committee. I think it's a huge issue. And I just think that may bog us down, but that's my feeling, and I'm not speaking for the board.
Well, I agree that we need to start the discussion and work it out. I'm not ready to vote right now, though, up or down on that proposal that you sent, but I think the discussion does need to start soon. But right right, as Dana said, I think it's a complicated issue, and I think, you know, we can start discussing it, but I'm not ready to make a decision yet.
And just for the benefit of the public, my proposal offers a financial assistance to someone that wants to go to a school other than Manchester, but can't afford the matching for the extra tuition. And as I sent it to the board members, I really was not trying to get a vote of support, but more of a starting point. And frankly, this idea of financial aid is kind of new to me, and I kind of like to just see what ideas people have, if it's really got any legs and going to go anywhere, or, you know, and I'm sure Phil's looking at it like it's a very complicated, although I don't think illegal, but if it is, Phil, please chime in.
No. We can do something, then we can check out.
Right, and I just wanted to see if there was a will to discuss that issue. If there's not, then, you know.
I mean, I have concerns, one from a legal, and I have nothing to go by. It sounds like we're financing public, we finance, I guess we do finance public education, but we're financing it in a different manner, against the contract that we have, and again, I guess I'd want to hear how the discussion, sounds like we're going to discuss it. I'd be interested just in hearing how the discussion unfolds. It's a new one on me, so.
I would also propose that, you know, it's not my intention to drag the meeting out. And Chair, it's certainly up to you, but I would be in favor of having a time-limited discussion about this at a few meetings. If we took 15 minutes and just went at it, and then maybe we're left with some questions that Phil needs to find out about, if we're going somewhere legally that we should find out about or something, but I really just want to move it along. I don't want to, you know, right now, turn this into a 2-hour assignment meeting, but on the other hand, I'm just reluctant to push it back. So I thought this idea would be a good place to start, because it seemed to me that the will of the board was to let this happen, or we voted in such a manner that children were able to go to other high schools based on superintendent's criteria. So I think we need to finalize that if we're going to, and some of the big issues I heard were financial issues. So I thought it maybe makes sense to deal with that issue first, because if that issue is shot down, it may start to shoot down other parts of the policy that we don't even need to talk about.
I think it's great that we're going to open up the dialogue, and we should continue it, so I don't want to belabor this. I mean, I think we can continue this, you know, at another time too, but just to clarify where I was with all of this, I mean, yes, it's the financial piece, but realistically, all the research that I did really tells me that the law is not set up to have school choice or a voucher program. So I'd like to see us maybe just do a little more research, because I just took that upon myself. I didn't get any actual input from any professionals, but maybe we should, you know, go to the School Board Association, find out what their stance on it is, because these were all people that spoke at that SB 131 that was voted down at the Senate. And also the Department of Education also went there and spoke to it. So maybe we really need to be sure that, you know, we are following along with the intention of the law. And I think the intention of the law is that why they don't support school choice or voucher program is because all public education is supposed to be free. And so that's where my concern is. My concern is that we just are consistent with what the intention of the law is. So if we're going to go this path, I just think we should at least investigate it further. Because again, I only did my own limited research, but maybe we need to pull in some more people to be sure. We only consulted as a board with the attorney, but maybe there are other agencies that we could consult to make sure that we are following that. That's all I have to offer for future discussion.
And, yeah, about starting with that part of it, the tuition or the money part of it, I think I'd rather wait to do that discussion, it could be very lengthy, but can we do something like agree on the points that were made in the proposal, in the proposed draft? Can we agree on like the first few or something? How the superintendent does it in the best interest and some other things in there. Can we just talk about that and see if there's agreement on that so far or not?
I have a question, probably for Dr. Littlefield. Dr. Littlefield, is it efficient for us to bring the attorney Grant in for like 1 hour? I mean, as far as, I'm not familiar with how he deals with this, but is it, my thought was, could we get him here for an hour or half an hour and address all the legal issues that we have with this, with the board? Because I understand what you're saying, Cheryl, about research, but when it comes down to it, if we're talking about the law, I think we need to ask point blank the lawyer that's going to represent us if something goes wrong. I mean, because our interpretation of the law is not really going to be the best thing, I don't think, to go on. But is that, I guess what I'm saying, is it costly or is it,
Well, it's not costly if, by asking a question, we keep ourselves out of trouble. And generally, you pay for the time he spends here, but he gets transit time too. So Salem to here, portal to portal, here to Salem.
for at least 2 hours, 2.5
Yeah,
hours?
yeah.
Okay. I would be in favor of kind of preparing ourselves so that we can be efficient and not belabor Attorney Graham with the concerns and questions that we have and kind of, and maybe we could touch on your part first and then the other part and kind of go through it. And perhaps we could even preface that by preparing him for what we're, what we're going to talk about. But I do think it's better if we can all talk to him at the same time. Mike and I had a chance to talk to him, but then, we're left to convey what we took out of that, So I think we should, bring him in and kind of set our legal baseline of what we all agree is either legal or not legal, and then we can proceed from there.
But at this point, do we have to bring them in? Can we send them, say, a proposal or that draft and see what he thinks about it? Wouldn't that be less expensive? Or, well, we couldn't ask questions then, but maybe for this early point, send it to him, have him become familiar, and then maybe later on we can have him in.
Well, there's two reasons that I would like to have him come in. One is, I think as we go through this, there's going to be, depending on his answers, there may be more questions, or somebody may have questions about specific research that they've done that came up. The other benefit would be for the benefit of the public to be here and to hear those same answers that we're hearing. So if we come back and we go, hey, we just can't do this, they will have sat here and heard the attorneys say they can't do it. I mean, I think it's worth it to have that. I think the back and forth with the paper could get lengthy because there's certain to be follow-up questions. So that's my idea. If we can, I think we would have to dedicate probably an hour. I don't know, maybe a half an hour, but that seems awful short to get through something like this. But I think, changing my idea about talking about the financial thing first, I think we should talk about the legal thing first, because that's what we're going to base this on. We're certainly not going to vote for something that we all believe to be illegal. So I think we really need to get that out on the table first and then decide what we're going to do.
We're looking for the business meetings in June.
I would like to, I think if we had one time period here to kind of all think about this and think about what questions we have, we could be much more efficient when he comes in and address those questions.
You see if he's available in June?
Sure.